So this is the video tutorial for the CRC Child Care Stabilization Fund grant application. So what you will do is you will input the SurveyMonkey URL into a web browser, and we recommend that you use a computer as opposed to a phone or a tablet to fill out the survey because it is quite lengthy and it is easier to view and fill out on a computer as opposed to a smaller screen. So on the first page, what you will see is application information, which consists of all the general background information on the grant. And you should make sure that you meet all of the following criteria before you apply. So the criteria are that your child care program must be open, it must be located in Napa County, it must be licensed by the California Department of Social Services, and that your child care program must demonstrate economic hardship directly due to COVID-19. If you are a publicly funded program, such as one that is funded through the Napa County School District, NCOE, or Head Start, you are not eligible to apply. And funding is limited to one grant per individual or business owner. So if you have multiple sites, you should only be submitting one grant application. If you keep scrolling down, you'll see the amounts that different providers are eligible to receive. And as you know, the application will be evaluated based on a weighted point system, and the grant funding will be distributed based on the number of points an application receives. So special consideration will be given to programs that serve children with childcare subsidies, that serve other special populations, as detailed below in this section. Providers that care for infants during regular operations that are located in parts of Napa County where there is a lack of childcare availability. Providers that participate in quality improvement programs such as quality counts, and providers who have attempted to secure additional financial support to pay for COVID-19 related expenses. So you'll see the point distribution right here in this table. And grant applications are due on November 15th, 2020 at 11:59 p.m. So right at midnight, right before midnight on November 15th. You'll also see the general timeline information, including when you'll be notified of grant acceptance and when funds will be dispersed to recipients. If you need to fill out a hard copy of the application because you do not have access to a device or a printer, you can contact CRC at 707-253-0376 extension 101 or send an email to info@crcnapa.org to make arrangements to receive a hard copy. And you can drop off your application at 3299 Claremont Way, Suite 1 in Napa. If you choose to fill out a hard copy of the application, you must consent to having CRC staff enter your information into the online application form on your behalf in the attestation section near the end of the survey. And if you have more questions, you can read the frequently asked questions that you received as well. So that's the first page. You can go ahead and hit next when you're done with that part. And it will bring you to the first page of the application that you will start to fill out. You will not be able to proceed to the next page on any pages of these applications until you have answered all of the required questions. And your application will not be complete until you click the Done button after the section that says Optional Questions on the last page. Another feature of this survey portal is that you can save any information that you have entered by hitting the Next button right here. And it will save everything that you've previously entered on that page, and you will be able to come back to it through the same link that you used before. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what I mean by that. If I go ahead and enter in all the required questions that have asterisks next to them. I'm just going to put an X through. And I hit next. It will go to the next page. And you'll see that if I try to go to the URL again, it will have saved that information and it will bring me directly to the next page. And all of my information that I input, all of those X's are saved on the previous page. Before you start filling out the online application, we recommend that you have the following information available. Because we are defining pre-COVID-19 as February 1st, 2020, you'll see that date in a lot of the questions. And we are also defining post-COVID-19 as October 1st, 2020. So the information you will need is as follows. You'll need the number of children enrolled in your program on February 1st and on October 1st, 2020. You'll also need the ages of the children enrolled in your program on February 1st and October 1st, 2020. You'll also need the number of children with subsidies enrolled in your program on October 1st, 2020, as well as the number of children with special needs enrolled in your program on October 1st, 2020. You will also need the total income from your childcare business for the month of February 2020 and for the month of October 2020. You will need detailed expenses for your childcare business for the months of February and October 2020, and it includes all of the following buckets, including rent and mortgage, property taxes and insurance, utilities, payroll and benefits, food and transportation costs related to childcare, educational or instructional material, furniture and equipment related to childcare, cleaning supplies, and any other unlisted expenses. You will also need your one-time COVID-19 related expenses and your ongoing COVID-19 related expenses that you are incurring every month that you have not included in your October 2020 estimate. You will also need the amounts of any support that you have received in loans and other non-CRC grants for COVID-19 relief, as well as your gross annual income in 2019 from your childcare program and your gross annual household income from 2019 as reported on your taxes. When you have gathered all of that information, you will be ready to get started. So this first section asks for your applicant information. So that's primarily your provider information. You will put in your provider organization name, which I put as X right here, your legal entity name if it's different from your organization name, your EIN number if you have one, the date that your program was established, your provider license number, and the address of your program. Here is a section on primary contact information, so that is your information. You will put your first name, your last name, your email address, your phone number, and your own address if it's different from your organization address. Then you will answer the question, are you currently open? And you will hit yes, or you will answer no. If you hit the answer yes, and you hit next and you've answered all of the required asterisk questions, it will allow you to continue on to the next page. However, if you click no and hit next, it will take you to a special page where you will need to call Maribel Miranda at 707-253-0376 and extension 137 to assess whether you are still eligible to apply. After you have spoken to her, you'll be able to answer this question and continue on with the survey. If she determines that you are not eligible, you will need to discontinue filling out the application. So I'm going to go ahead and change this back to yes. Continue on to the next page. This is the second page of the provider and organization section. You will answer whether you are a home-based or center-based provider, what your licensed capacity number is according to your facility license. I'm just going to put 10 for all the numerical answers. How many sites do you operate? I'm just going to put in 10. Who owns the site where your childcare program is located? So you will have to decide whether you're a home-based provider or a center-based provider. And then it will ask you about whether you own the location where your childcare program is located or whether you rent. Then you will answer this question. Please check the following programs or trainings you participate in. And you can select more than one answer. So if I'm participating in more than one program, I can select all the ones that apply. If I am not participating in any programs or trainings, I can hit this response. And if I have a specific other program that's not listed above, I can go ahead and type it in here. This question will ask you, who were you serving and what were your funding sources prior to COVID-19? And this will be based on your enrollment on February 1st, 2020, and you'll need to break down the total enrollment by the number of private pay students and the number that receives subsidies. When you use this drop-down, you can go ahead and enter the number. You do not have to scroll all the way to the bottom. You can go ahead and enter the number. So I'm going to put 10 and I can hit enter and it will show up right there. You'll also want to break down the total enrollment, the private pay and subsidy program numbers by age. So you'll see infant, and this will be from birth up to 24 months, so not including 24 months. Preschool age children, which is 24 months up to 5 years, and school age children, kindergarten students up to 13 years. And you'll want to have a total number of children at the bottom. So the total numbers here should add up to the number you put right here. So for example, if I put 10 here, if I have 10 of each of these, my total will be 30. So these should add up right here. These numbers right here, private pay and subsidy program, should add up to the total number of students enrolled in that age group. So if I have 10 enrolled here, I should have this number and this number add up to the total enrolled, 5 and 5. So I'm going to put in 5 just as an example in all of these categories. In which case my totals down here will be 15. And now for the next question, you will be answering, who are you currently serving and what are your current funding sources? So these numbers will be based on the enrollment on October 1st, 2020. And you'll show a similar breakdown of total enrollment by age group and by private pay and subsidy program students. So again, your numbers are going to want to add up. So if I have 10 of each age group, I'm going to end up with 30 on the bottom. The private pay and subsidy program will equal the number of total enrolled. So I'm just going to put 5 and 5 as an example right here, which makes this 15 for the total number of children in that category. And then I'm going to move on to the next question. It says, do you currently serve any special populations? Number of children falling into each category. So you're going to have a number right here that apply to this category. If you have children who fall under multiple categories, you're going to designate just one category as the primary category. So I'm going to go ahead and put 1 in here just as an example. If you do answer 1 in the other category, you're going to describe what that category is below. And then the total number of children. So this should add up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to go ahead and put 7 down there because that's the total number of children. So this page will address staffing and economic impact. The first question will ask, what was your gross annual income from your childcare program in 2019? So this will be what you reported on your taxes in 2019. And let's say my income was 100,000. I'm going to make sure that I enter numbers without commas in them. For example, if I put 100,000 and separate 100, comma 000, it will not accept the response. I can only have numbers in there. The next question will ask, for the month of February 2020, what were your monthly childcare operating expenses in the following categories? So it will ask you what the total expenses are, and you're going to want to make sure that all of your numbers in these categories above add up to your total below. So I'm going to put in 1,000 for each of these categories, just as an example. You're going to answer for rent and mortgage, property taxes and insurance, including business insurance, any utilities you paid, payroll, including any money you paid to yourself as a salary, benefits, food and transportation costs related to childcare, educational or instructional materials, furniture and equipment related to childcare, cleaning supplies. Anything that was not included in these categories above should be included in the category other. And then you're going to want to total all of those expenses for the month of February 2020 and put it below. So I'm going to continue adding 1,000 for all of these categories. And you might have the response 0 for this category. I'm going to put 1,000 in there just as an example. And I have 10 categories, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So my total is $10,000. The next question will be the same format, but for the month of October 2020, what were your monthly childcare operating expenses? So you'll do the same thing, breaking them down by category. I'm going to put in 1,000, making sure not to add any commas so it's formatted correctly. And then I will total up the expenses, and for me, that will total 10,000 once again. Question number 25 asks, in February 2020, how much total income did you receive from operating your childcare program, including tuition, subsidies, donations, etc.? So for me, that number might equal 1,000. So for the next question, number 26, you're going to put how much total income you received in October 2020. So that number might differ from the one above because it's post-COVID or during COVID. And so I'm going to put 50,000 right there as an example. For question number 27, you will be asked if you've sought any financial support from any of the following sources. If you asked for financial support and you did not receive any, you're still going to want to check one of the boxes that apply. So you can check as many as apply to you. Let's say I applied to PPP and I asked for loans and donations from friends and families. I can check both of them, or as many as apply. If I have not sought support from any outside sources, I can go ahead and click this response right here. And if I sought support from a source that is not listed above, I'm going to hit other, and then I'm going to describe what that source was. Now, in question number 28, depending on what you selected above in question number 27, what you put here will be different. So let's say I applied to the Small Business Administration Payroll Protection Program, and I also sought some loans or donations from friends and family. And if I did not receive any money from them, even though I sought support from them, I will put 0. If I did receive money from either of those sources, I'm going to total the amount that I received from them and put that number here. So let's say I received $1,000 from just the donations from friends and family, and I was rejected from the PPP program. I can put 1,000 right here. If you selected I have not sought support from any outside sources, you can go ahead and enter a dash right there. For me, for my example, I'm going to say I received $1,000 from one of the above sources, and then move on to question number 29. Between March 15th, 2020 and now, how much did you incur in one-time COVID-19 related expenses that are not included in your October expenses? So these are one-time COVID-19 related expenses that you did not put or did not show up in your October expense tally. So let's say it's something like a cleaning supply that you had to purchase just once, some kind of facility expense that you incurred, like a new partition wall, some program supplies you had to purchase, some staffing that you had to take on, or new technology. You're going to put that right here. So let's say I spent $1,000 on a one-time COVID related expense that's not in my October expenses. And then between March 15th and now, how much did you incur in incremental ongoing monthly COVID-19 related expenses? So if there's some kind of expense that I'm incurring monthly, that I'm taking on every month related to any of these categories, and it's due to COVID-19, and I don't have it listed in my October expenses, I'm going to put it right here. And this is just what you're incurring every month, not the total amount you've incurred from March 15th to now. So let's say I'm incurring about $100 a month related to program supplies, and that was not put in my October expenses. For this question, it asks, if you are awarded a grant, how do you plan to use the funds? You're going to pick 5 categories that are your most pressing financial needs, or basically your priorities for spending the money. And you're going to rank these categories in the order of priority, from 1 being the highest priority and 5 being the lowest priority. So if I plan to use my funds first for housing support, I would rank that as my highest priority. I would put number 1 right there. Let's say my next most pressing need is additional costs for cleaning and sanitizing or health and safety materials. That would be 2. And then I would continue ranking all of these categories from 1 to 5. I would pick the only 5 most important uses for the funds. So let's say reopening costs that I incurred, lost income that I recurred, and paid sick leave that I've incurred. Notice how I've left all of the other categories blank. I've selected the 5 highest priority categories, and then I've ranked them according to how high of a priority they are. So when you're done filling out this page, you're going to hit next again. I'm going to hit next, and it will bring me to section 4, which is the narrative and attestation section. This narrative section is optional, but if there's anything you would like us to know about your program, your organization, and the landscape in which you're working in, whether or not it's related to COVID-19, please feel free to elaborate right here, and try to limit your response to around 250 words. To complete the application, you will have to fill out the attestation section, which just attests that you're in compliance with the following things. You are in good standing with community care licensing. You hold current insurance coverage if required by the local licensing and regulatory authority. You are current on all local, state, and federal taxes. You and your staff have active background checks as required by local licensing and regulatory authorities. You are open and intend to stay in business for the foreseeable future and after the conclusion of COVID-19. And then this last one only applies to if you have filled out a hard copy of the application, which states you give permission to CRC to input the above information electronically if you are completing a paper copy of this application. So you'll check this box on the paper version of your application, and we will fill this out for you in the electronic version. So if you're doing this online, you're going to check the first 5, assuming that you are in compliance with all of those criteria. And then you're going to hit next. And it will take you to the last section of the application, which is the optional questions section. Responses are required. However, the answers are only for data collection purposes only. They will not affect the application status or the amount of funding you receive. And if you prefer not to answer any of these questions, you can select I prefer not to answer. So, is your business owned or controlled by a person or people of color? You should answer yes if more than half of the owners identify as Hispanic or a race other than white. If that's true, you can hit yes. If not, then no, or I prefer not to answer. Same thing for if your business is controlled or owned by a woman or women. Answer yes if more than half of the owners identify as women. If that's the case, then yes, or I prefer not to answer, or no. Then it asks you to select the range in which your gross annual household income falls. If your gross annual income falls, let's say it's 50,000, you're going to put it in this range, 50,000 to 74,999. You also have the option to say, I prefer not to answer once again. And then finally, please check all that apply. This is for data collection only. You can select any of the categories that apply to your business, whether it's Latinx owned, whether it's women owned, white owned, LGBTQ, disabled, veteran, immigrant, any other minority owned business, or I prefer not to answer. So I'm going to go ahead and select whichever ones apply. Let's see. I'm going to select Asian American and women owned. And when I'm done, remember that you're going to have to select this done button right here. And once you select the done button, you cannot go back to change your answers. So if you want to keep changing your answers, you can go ahead and come back to the URL, and any page that you've completed and hit the next button on will save your responses. And then anytime you feel like you have completed everything to the best of your ability, you can hit the done button right here. So once you hit done, you'll see it's 100% complete. I'm going to hit done, and then it will tell me that I have completed the survey. Thank you for taking the survey, and I'm finished with the application. So there is our video tutorial for the Child Care Stabilization Fund grant application. If you have any further questions, please refer to the FAQ or contact Maribel Miranda at 707-253-0376, extension 137. You can also email her at Maribel, M-A-R-I-B-E-L-M, at crcnapa.org. We look forward to receiving your application.